adding a jump to this character, we will need to modify the script. So let's take a look at the character script. We select the player. You see you have the script, and we have two public variables. The speed for how fast the character can move, and the turn speed for how fast he can turn using Q and E. So you can change that in the inspector, and then it'll update in the game. If I change that speed to, actually I'll just press play, and we can see it. So there he is moving forward and backward at a speed of 10. I increase that to 50. And now he can move a lot faster. Faster even than gravity. And then any changes, because I made them in play mode for testing, once I leave play mode, it'll leave those changes behind. It's back to 10. So any public variables, good idea to play with them while in play mode so you can test what they're doing. Anyway, let's open up this script. We can just double click on movement or B here, and it'll open up in Visual Studio. You see there's our variables, speed and turn speed, public, so we can see them in the inspector. As we move down, we can see a list of variables. What are these variables?
The movements of the movements in the player.
The direction.
Sure. What is this? What does it mean? Boolean. True or false? Correct. So, what these are variables stored within inside a function. Cowie, you were asking, sorry, what were you asking? How to open the script. So you just double click on it in the inspector. You can either find the script down here and just double click to open it, or you can double click right on the script here and it will open it up as well. So these are some variables that are declared within update. This is because if we declared these at the top, they would be called once. We need less. We need to check every frame with the fixed update whether we're pressing the input, whether we're pressing forwards, backwards, left, right, or turning. So these variables can only be accessed within fixed update because they're created in fixed update. They're not script wide. They're only available in here. And then just like we did with the light, we have an input get key. It's not get key down. So get key means we're pressing it, it's going to continuously add that value. If we had get key down, he'd move forward once and then stop. Get key, continuous movement. And then I've just stored each as a true or false, the key code that I'm looking for. This just means that when I want to apply what's happening on each key press, I can just say if W, if that bool is true or false. Is that key being pressed or not? And then I'm adding the code here. Adding some forward movement to our rigid body transform. I won't go through that too much. So for creating our jump, we're not going to create it in fixed update. We're going to put it in update. Do I have an update in here? I don't. So let's write a new update function. So right after start, just add void update, capital, open and close parentheses. Oh, and it's auto-completed it for me. And private is fine. So just under start, add a new update. And then just like I've done in fixed update, I'm going to store my key press as a bool. Oh, I can make this bigger. So inside of update, I'll create a bool. I'll name it space. And that is equal to input dot get key down, because we don't want the jump to continuously launch us into space unless that's what you want to do. You want to be able to fly. Put it as get key. Get key down. Key code dot space and semicolon to close it off. Oh, capital S. And then next we're going to need our if statement to check if we're pressing the key. So similar to here, it says if space. If space. So it's checking if the key is being pressed or not.
Just have that we should use update.
Yes.
Instead of fix update.
Yes.
What's
Why? You're asking why. It's because of how it updates. And actually, we'll test it in fixed update and you'll be able to see exactly what I mean. But let's just say fixed update only updates every second frame. That means on certain frames, as we're playing, you're trying to press space and it's not updating. So the space, the jump button doesn't work on certain frames. This will cause frustration because you're trying to jump as you get to the edge of a ledge. You're trying to do it just perfectly, and then you press it, and you're like, I was on the ledge. Yeah, that's because it's not updating at that. If we put it in update, it's every single frame. It's checking for the space bar. So that's why. So for movement, it's perfectly fine because we're adding physics force, and it's going in time. It's as fast as the physics engine can update. So for the movement stuff, perfectly fine, perfectly responsive. So like jump, we need it to be on every single frame.
Can you keep moving update as well?
Right.
Can you keep move and like for example forward backwards left?
Oh yes, you
update as
can,
well?
you can. But it's better to keep in step with the physics engine.
So,
That's why. Back to the script. Okay, so I have my rigid body up here as Ord B. What else do I need to make? The vector first. Okay, orbital add force. Yes. All right, I need another variable. I need a vector 3 that I will call jump. Now, a vector 3 is a variable that stores x, y, and z values. That's why the 3 are here, x, y, and z. Our y is our vertical direction. So we're going to want to add force on the vertical. So right now, if we add force 0, 0, 0, it's adding 0 onto each 3 of those. So I'm just going to add, let's say, 20 right in the middle here. 20f.
Left, why? Because it's a float.
This is a float.
And what's happening if you don't put the F?
I mean, usually it's fine. I always do it.
Okay.
It's just, yeah. It helps define to other developers as well that this is a float value and not an int. But it won't affect the code if I leave that f off.
What is recommended?
Yeah. Plus, you looked at that and went, it's a float. I'm like, yeah, it is. That's really what. So, we need to add this force to our rigid body. It's going to add 0 on the x, 20 on the y, the vertical, and 0 on the z. And in fact, I'll add a comment here. And here I'm going to use a rigid body function to add force to this. So down here, am I using add force? No, I'm using move position. Alright. So here I'm going to say or b, which is my rigid body, because I've stored it in a variable up here, get component rigid body. So at the start, I'm already accessing the rigid body of the character and storing it here. Variable, variable. So now I can just say or b dot add force. Yes. And I'm trying to get it before it fades away, but it's giving me the syntax. It's saying it's looking for a vector 3 force. We've created a vector 3 for that. So we're going to put jump in here, referring to this jump. And I'm going to change the force mode to impulse, so it gives a burst. Force mode, impulse. Impulse.
So,
Yep.
so the two variables, what are they? So one of them is
The bool. What's the bool?
no, for the add force.
Yes.
So
Okay.
normally, like, what I do is that it's supposed to be two vectors that you're supposed to add.
Well, they're not two vectors. This is a vector, and then this is the type of force that we are adding. I mean, you can leave that off, the force mode thing. I just find it's a better result, especially with something like jumping, because it basically gives you the full force at once, whereas add force adds it gradually. But this gives you the full amount all at once, because our burst and jump.
So the impulse is like gravity
No.
to the jump.
It's the way we're delivering, we're adding this force. So there's a smooth way of adding. The way we're doing when we're using our character control, we're pressing forward and it's adding force gradually and pushing us forward. Whereas force mode impulse is going to give the full value, the 20F, at one time in one burst. So it's not like gravity. Okay, do we all have this script? Can I take it away or shall I leave it up? If you have the script, test right now. If it works, good. If not, let's find out why. Okay, I'm going to jump back into Unity now. Make sure I've saved my file. Save. Now when I press the space bar, I should be able to jump. Oh, I can jump very, very high.
Time follows physics law.
Now, that jump is a little bit too high. Or maybe my mass is not high enough. Some experimentation maybe between changing the mass of my rigid body and the force.
Are we going to gravity?
Now it's a very, 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 very small one with a mass of 10. However, not being able to control the jump force with a public variable is a problem. And it would mean anytime we want to change how strong our jump is, we have to open up the script and go down to the update function. So let's go back into the script and create a public variable to store our jump force. Leap mode. So back into the script, and up the top I'm going to create another public float. Float, let's say jump force, or jump power, whatever you want. I'll give it a default of 20F. So a public float value of 20F. And then in our jump logic, instead of having a number here, 20F, what can we put instead?
Jump force.
Jump force, correct. Jump, and it'll autocomplete for me nicely. So now it's still 20F on the Y, but it's using the public variable up here, so in the inspector I can change that. I can adjust my jump force on the fly.
So you're just calling the variable, right?
Yep, calling this variable in the y-axis of our vector to force it upwards.
So you just want to change it on the top, is that it? I mean, if you turn it on the top, it will change it.
Yeah, but then back in the inspector, once I've saved this,
Yeah.
now I can change it in the inspector. There's my jump force, so I don't have to go back to the script. I can move it up or down, change the value as I see fit. Okay, too high. Let's try that jump force at 10. A little bit better, a little bit more reasonable of a jump. Yeah. Let's see your script one more time. There's your problem. Input, get key down. So you're demonstrating exactly. If you hold it, you're adding the force infinitely. That's what we're doing next. So yeah, I'll get into that now. Into the script. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I'm going to do next. Yeah. No, we're going to do it now.
¿Cómo se crea un player? En 3D, ¿no?
So, if I do actually move this whole thing into fixed update, oh dear, what's happening? So if I copy this whole thing into fixed update and save it there, you'll see the exact issue I'm talking about. So I'm walking, my jump is there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. See there, it didn't work at a certain ledge because it's not on the exact frame. Okay. And the final thing I said we do today, let's bring our Blender files into Unity, our Blender level designs, and get some colliders working. So happily, Blender and Unity, the files work really well together. There are different ways of exporting, but if we just get our Blender file and literally import it, drag it into our scene, I'll actually make a folder for it. I will call it 3D Mesh. And is this my level? I think it is. Okay, there's lots going on in here. But that is my level. And we'll look at exporting individual pieces in a moment. I might have just crashed everything.
I mean, you have Unity and Blender open at the same time.
Yeah. Let's open YouTube and Spotify as well. Okay, all is well. No, all is not well. Save your Unity file. Hey, no, it's fine. It's just because of complicated reflections. Okay. Right, so there's my level with all the little bits and pieces we were working on. To import this into Unity, the simplest way is just to grab the Blender file and drag it in. So there it is, start level. I'm just going to drag straight into my assets. And hopefully my materials will appear as well. Oh, it looks like they have. So there's my start level. And I can see all of my pieces are there with the colors. Very nice.
Jeez, my colors are not there.
Oh, well, we can fix that, don't worry.
So maybe I
Oh.
sent you
Oh.
without colors.
Oh, well, that's...
That's not good.
Do you have this set up? Automatically pap resources? In Unity? Or Blender? Now, how to bring it into our game. Very simple. We can just drag it in. So this is going to be absolutely everything. The cameras and the lights will be in here as well, so we might have to remove those. But I can drag into my world, and is that a good scale? It's okay. So here comes the cleanup part where I have to go through and hide and remove lights that aren't meant to be there. So I just just go up to my start level. I can roll down and see all the individual pieces at once. And I'm just going to go through and get rid of all the lights. We can handle our own lighting in Unity.
James,
Yes.
What was the option you in Blender to save the?
File, external data, automatically pack resources.
Yeah.
It still didn't work.
I don't know. I'm gonna make it work.
Okay. All right. So those are my lights. I'm just going to delete them. Yeah. And it's telling me I cannot do this until I unpack my prefab, which I will do. So I just have to unpack my prefab before I can modify it. It's brought in the Blender file as a prefab the same way the player controller was brought in. To unpack the prefab, right click, go to prefab, and unpack.
What, sorry?
To unpack the prefab, right click, go to prefab and unpack. If it doesn't let you modify it, it's because it's keeping the connection to the prefab. And now I'm able to delete things and it won't give me a warning. Okay, this guy is called Level Sketch 3. I will call him Guy. Okay, so our level is in. We're almost ready. Oh, I have an extra camera. I forgot to delete the extra camera. So yeah, the Blender camera counts as a Unity camera as well. So delete that.
Chambers,
Yep.
would you be so kind to show again how to export the Blender file?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's taking a while to, yeah, it was.
Okay, no, I'll do the other method. Just real quick though, I want to get into a pretty essential part of this. We need to be able to walk on this surface. So right now, you can see I am flying through this surface. Why would you say that is? Any guesses why I can walk through this?
There is no collision?
Either.
Bingo! 20 points, Slytherin.
Slytherin?
Yeah. It's a fine house. Look, you're in the school. Anyway, so there's no colliders on this, but there is a collider on our plane. We can collide with that. We need to add colliders to our mesh objects. So, here I have my starting point. Mesh render. And in order to be able to walk on it, I need to add a collider to it. I can add a bunch of box colliders, or I can just use a mesh collider, which will read the mesh. And that's probably the best option in this case. So I'm going to add a component. I've got my object selected. Add component, and I'm going to search for mesh collider. And this create collision as good as it can, as approximate as it can to the mesh that we have. And since this is very square, it's going to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I can't see the. I don't know.
And you can see there is the collider on its own. In fact, I'll just move it out here.
Do you know why it can be Seamus? I can't be important with the colors.
Don't worry, they're still there. We can just quickly reassign the materials. All your material assignments will still be there. It'll be a matter of creating more colors and just assigning them. It'll be an easy fix, I promise. Look at this collider. Notice it is the mesh. That is what a mesh collider does. I've just turned off the mesh renderer part so we can see it. So now we have collision. I should be able to walk on this thing. There it is. Bang! I'm on! My mesh is real. Up until I get to the first step. So, what I need to do next is just go through every other piece of mesh and add a collider to it. So there's a cube. I will shift select this end piece. I will shift select this other map. And I'm just going to add a mesh collider to all three at the same time. So add component, mesh collider. And let's see how this is going. We might have some issues with the big complicated map at the end. Oh, let me just yeah. I think I need my gravity to be more as well. It's not falling very fast. Yikes. Okay, let's make that jump a little bit less. Go. Alright, no, that worked fine. Great. I'm in my maze. And I've oh, I can just about get through. Oh, the end of the maze. So, importing the blend file did not work for you.
Well, because it was loading, it was taking too long
Yeah.
to load.
Okay. The other way is to export our mesh from Blender as a file on its own. So FBX, OBJ, Collada, these are different file formats. OBJ and FBX are the most widely accepted files. You have a question? Okay, just a moment. The difference being that OBJ is just mesh data, FBX is mesh data, but it also contains an animation. So we use FBX for animating stuff. If I want to just export, let's say this level piece on its own, I could select it. I can go to File, Export, and then I'll just select FBX. And then in the FBX settings, you have to make sure you're only exporting selected. Export, FBX. And over here, I want to limit to selected objects. And I'll say just mesh object types.
Just match?
Yeah, because I just want to export this object, this mesh object.
Okay, so no camera.
No, we don't want that camera anyway. We have our Unity camera following our player. So then selected objects, so it'll only export what I have selected, which is level sketch 1 is what it's called, but it's that maze. And then just export FBX. It'll export with the materials and the animation and any transforms. Oh, where will I put it? In Unity 8 scripting, I will call it Maze 1 FBX.
Can you go again to the collider or mesh setting?
Yes. Yes, I will do that right now. Okay, so importing the FBX, we can say assets import new asset, or you can drag and drop, both the same. Assets, import asset. And then there is Maze 1, my 3D object that I just exported as an FBX. And you see, there it is. Maze 1, ready to be imported. Adding colliders to this, I just have to bring it into my scene first. There it is. Oops. And then adding the mesh collider, it's literally go to, you make sure you have your object selected. So Maze 1 is selected, not the empty that's holding it. You'll know it's the object because you'll see mesh render as one of the components and mesh filter. So now I know with these two components it has to be a 3D mesh object. So I can apply a mesh collider to it. And then just add component, and you can search mesh or look in physics for colliders. But if you search mesh, it's the first one. All good? Mesh collider, and now we should be able to walk around on it. There we go.
Do you have any idea why my character drives crazy and starts spinning the camera?
Yes, because I created it, that's why. It's not a perfect character controller. We'll have a better one for the project. This is just to show you the sausage. Yeah. I do know why. Yeah, it's because I'm using the constraints and they're conflicting with what the camera's trying to do. It only likes the player to be facing straight up, and yeah. Anyway, that's bringing your assets in. That's our introduction to scripting. I'm going to stop this stream right here.